work as a fire tower lookout in Yellowstone National Park is to accept pure isolation. You hike miles up a steep, narrow trail to reach a structure bolted into rock high above the tree line. Your only job is to watch the canopy for smoke, log the weather, and maintain the radio. That specific solitude is exactly what Daniel wanted. He didn't need a team or a schedule packed with check-ins. He wanted the utilitarian interior of the cabin, the narrow cot, and a radio that mostly played static. It was supposed to be a simple, repetitive retreat, but the handoff was unusually abrupt. His predecessor, a man named Eric, loaded the gear in total silence and left almost immediately. There was no training manual. Instead, Eric handed Daniel a folded piece of paper containing 4 cryptic, handwritten rules. Standard Forest Service guidelines focus on mundane threats, securing food from bears or checking stove connections. Daniel's list focused on the unnatural. The very first line stated, "Do not wear bright colors," followed by instructions to spray the tower if he heard chewing, seal every gap before nightfall, and stay out of the trees if he saw animals in webs. These instructions suggest this specific Yellowstone ridge is host to something hostile. We have to look at the encounters to determine if this is a site of extreme biological mutation or ground zero for an ancient, localized anomaly. Daniel accidentally violated that first rule by wearing a bright red jacket on the tower platform. Within minutes, a heavy, vibrating drone filled the air. A bumblebee the size of a basketball hovered in front of him before slamming into his chest with enough force to knock him against the doorframe. On its own, a giant bee can be rationalized through the theory of localized gigantism. In isolated environments, certain species can grow to unusual proportions. The bee simply mistook his jacket for a massive flower, struck him, and moved on once it realized the mistake. The second rule defies this biological logic. One evening, a steady, repetitive grinding noise echoed up through the metal floor. Remembering the list, Daniel grabbed a sprayer filled with a caustic cedar oil mixture, opened the central hatch, and aimed it down into the dark. Clinging to the lower foundation beams were segmented, dog-sized beetles. Their mandibles clamped down, chewing directly into the thick metal supports of the tower. This data chart compares the maximum bite force of known biological insects against the tensile strength of industrial steel. While many insects can exert significant pressure, breaking down structural steel requires thousands of pounds of force per square inch. No natural digestive system or biological exoskeleton can process raw metal. The ability to digest steel fractures any standard evolutionary theory. This behavior indicates something engineered, a localized dimensional bleed, or a supernatural influence warping the natural instincts of the wildlife. That hostility escalated with the third rule. After sealing the windows and vents for the night, Daniel heard a systematic tapping. Massive centipedes crawled along the exterior walls, probing the metal seams. They mapped the structural weaknesses, eventually finding a microscopic gap near the door to try and breach the interior. Standard animal foraging relies on simple opportunity. These centipedes exhibited a mapped, coordinated effort to dismantle a sealed structure, displaying a level of predatory malice absent from normal insect behavior. This systematic approach suggests the forest operates with an active, predatory intent. The insects appear to function as extensions of a larger will, using these massive forms to hunt the human observer. The breaking point arrived with Rule 4. Thick, tightly woven webs began appearing between the pine trees, trapping rabbits, coyotes, and birds. When Daniel spotted a family camping inside the web zone, he broke protocol, grabbed a flashlight, and descended into the claustrophobic tree line to get them out. Above them in the canopy moved car-sized spiders. They didn't ambush the group. Instead, dozens of massive arachnids followed them in silence, remaining just outside the reach of their makeshift torches and stepping from strand to strand to maintain a perimeter. These spiders used active herding tactics, corralling Daniel and the family out of the forest. This behavior points toward a collective intelligence, a forest that acts as a singular organism, deploying its apex predators with calculated precision. To stop the spread of the webs, the rangers initiated a massive controlled burn. Aggressive flames swept along the ridge, incinerating the strands and driving the massive shapes deep into the forest. In the weeks that followed, the ridge returned to a deceptive baseline. Grass pushed through the ash. Average-sized birds and deer reclaimed the burned sections of the forest, restoring the appearance of a standard national park. The daily logs, weather checks, and endless hours spent scanning the trees serve a purpose unrelated to fire safety. The metal tower is an observation post. Daniel's actual objective is to monitor a supernatural quarantine zone, ensuring the anomaly remains contained and the rules of the ridge are strictly followed. The fire drove the anomaly deep into the root systems. The apex predators are still in the dark, adapting to the heat and waiting for the right